Welcome to In a Nutshell, the podcast dedicated to all things agricultural consulting. I'm Dylan Brush here with soil genius and ag consultant Bill Brush, and we're delighted to accompany you on this journey where we break down the different aspects of agricultural consulting. In each episode, we'll dive into the realm of agriculture through the eyes of Bill Brush, where consultants like Bill play a vital role in empowering farmers, agribusiness, and agricultural organizations. If you're passionate about agriculture, problem solving, and enjoy a little bit of detective work, this podcast is tailor-made for you.
Hi, this is Bill Brush, and welcome back to In a Nutshell. Today I'm going to talk about, in my consulting experience, the number one question I'm usually asked at some point from every client I've ever had. And that question, what should I plant? A lot of them want a permanent crop, and they want to know what I think of as what they should plant. Or they're going to plant almonds and they need pollinators. So which pollinator should? But it's always questioning me about what I think is the best one. And every situation obviously is different. But in this case, in this time that we're dealing with right here in, early 2026, it's really hard to come up with a really good answer. I can give you a variety situation on almonds. I can give you maybe some ideas on some other crops of what variety you should. But when I'm scratching my head when I said, what do I plant? Because right now, there's not a lot of good options. Economics for most things at the farm gate are pretty poor at the specific time. I'm sure if you haven't, you're not involved with ag much, but clear out here, we are losing one of the bigger canneries that we've done here that cans fruit, vegetables, and tomato products, and that's Del Monte, a brand that's existed for so long. And I just asked myself, why after all these years, and a lot of the farmers probably have seen it coming, but a lot of them were just left out in the cold at this particular time. And so I go back, and what I'm trying for all farmers is for you to be as prosperous as you can. And here in California, anybody that grows anything here knows it's an expensive place to farm. Inputs are high, energy's high, land prices are high. If you don't have a water district, water prices are high. So you have to always attain high yields to be able to maintain profitability. Well, there's a point where you can grow, if you're the top grower in terms of yield, but the price is so bad that you cannot make a profit, and that lasts for any length of time. Now we're looking at a point where your crop's probably not sustainable. And that's where a lot of the canning peach industry and basically all canned fruit, whether it's fruit cocktail or pears or peaches or apricots, whatever, they are not able to sustain profitable numbers and at the canning level as well as the growing level. So now a lot of people are left out with really only one major canner left in our state, which is Pacific Coast Producers, or PCP. And it's an agricultural co-op, and they're working off a plant or plants that have been purchased and like leased back or with a purchase date down the road if everything works well. And they do, of course, all the fruits that we're used to and also tomato products, and with a few facilities. But one has to go a little deeper and say, what happened to the canned fruit business? And it's had a long legacy in the Valley. I know when I was a kid in Modesto, there was a place called Tilly Lewis that hasn't been in business for years and years, but it was known for a lot of canning. And what happened to it? What happened to it was the market, what the consumer demand changed. They don't want canned fruit anymore. They don't want things that have had added sugar to keep it sweet, because a lot of the peaches were picked so that they would hold their structure together. They were held, picked not on the green side, but a lot of them had some green to it, and it made them less sweet. And so we added, sugar back into it, and heavy syrup or light syrup that we added into that. And while it's in the can, it takes on that sweetness that we added in the syrup. People are looking to eat healthier. They don't believe that's the healthiest way to eat. We've tried different packaging, going from cans to jars, which you could see the fruit and be more attractive. But ultimately, what happened was, and just think in your own neighborhood around your own grocery stores. You can get fresh fruit 12 months out of the year pretty much. Think of anything that you can't get. You can get it pretty much. It gets a little more expensive at times, but if you want to get peaches or you want to get apricots, you can get them almost at any time. Vegetables the same way. Grapes. You can go apples. You can go with anything. Some of that has to do with storability. The varieties we use are very storable, so you've got long life if you've got them in cold storage. Other places, it's the southern hemisphere. We get that even with some of the other crops besides fruits and vegetables. We get them in a nut crop. We'll get the people from Australia that are doing almonds, and they have a good valley that they can grow them in down there, and they hit, guess what, 6 months different than we do. Down in Chile, they have a lot of walnuts that have been tailored after our production, and they are 6 months behind us. So there is no big, huge demand because this is the only time we can buy them. They're available all year, which then begins to work on margins and works on the market that you're trying to be in. And so when you see things that you want, and it just came down to customers. Customers preferred fresh fruit, and they like the looks of it. They like where, but a lot of times they don't know where it comes from. We do have a good labeling. If you see on the containers, when you look at that, there's product from Mexico, product from Chile, product from Guatemala, all of these things that you can see where that actually was grown, but it's really available. I know that there's a company that I used to work for a lot that did about 50 types of vegetables. And what I saw them do, and this is what part of my take-home message I want it to be, is you have to adapt. Adaptation is what's going to keep a lot of farmers in business as we go forward. And the reason I say that, when I was even started out there, and this has got to be, probably 25 to 30 years ago, and maybe there was a slight amount, but not very much, kale grown. And now you hear kale all the time. And kale is good for this, and kale's good for that. Now it's grown extensively from all the vegetable growers in different areas. And so we got onto something that was now something demanded. It could have been easy to say, I'm not going to grow that stuff. I don't know anything about it. But if you're not adapting, you're falling behind in this business. They went into what I called the Asian vegetables, which I didn't know what they were when I was looking at them. I was just growing a plant, and they were happy with the outcome. But there's pukachu, which I think is a Korean vegetable, but they were hitting a niche market. They were adapting. There was demand and nobody filling the demand, so here they were. The next thing that came down the road, which a lot of vegetable people, because people wanted not only fresh, they wanted convenience. They didn't want to buy a head of lettuce. They wanted to have their salad all chopped up for them already, and it was in a bag, and we could take it home, take it out. They even went into salad mixes where they actually would put the amount of dressing that you needed for the volume you had there. They'd put in other types of things, whether it would be crushed nuts, chopped nuts, could use things like even bacon bits, all of those things into the salad. So you basically had a homemade salad right there, and it might last you a couple of days, and people paid for that convenience. It's an adaptation in the vegetable market, and it's one that a lot of these are people that are growing permanent crops. Here's the big difference, however, and this is why I get this question of, what do I plant? If I put in a vegetable and it doesn't work, I'm tearing it out and I'm going back with something. And most vegetables are, I think the average is somewhere around 2.8 turns, as we call them in the business, which means 2.8 crops per acre is grown on the vegetable ground. Some will be faster, some will be slower, but that's the average you kind of shoot for, 2.6 to 2.8 turns per year. So I'm never in something. I've only got just that. The planting costs and production costs are high, but I'm only stuck for that cycle. And then if I see that there's no market for this, you can go a different direction. When you plant a tree in the ground, you're looking for at least 20, if not 30 years of productive life out of that. So you're making a long-term decision. If you get into pistachios, you could be looking at 50 years or better. Uh, a lot of these things that when you look at them, are high investment, which looks good on a return, and you look at the way you put down what the economics are for that business and how much I should be able to pay back my initial investment and make so much per acre for so many years before I have to turn it around and go into a different crop. Well, there's a lot of these crops I'm talking about don't cash flow right now. So why would you be planting more in? And this is one of the problems I see a lot with agriculture is when things are good, we'll overplant, and we'll overplant quickly because everybody wants a piece of that particular market. And so we see a lot of what I call overproduction in so many ways that we get there too fast, even though we have to wait 3 to 4 years. A lot of people that have planted early can maintain themselves because they've paid off their investment of getting started, and so they can take a lower price. The people that are slow to react to get into that. So it's looking at at a demand, and then how much can that demand be effectively taken? How much can it be expanded? And I'm an almond and walnut grower. Right now, you see that the almonds are kind of in balance. They aren't like out of sight pricing. They're comfortable pricing, but they're not what we probably need if you want to pay back your investment really fast, because it takes a little longer at these kind of prices. But they are marketable and profitable. Okay. Well, if you keep planting into that, what's going to happen? You're going to overproduce. And if you're the one that's planting now, you're not going to be able to maintain or not be able to take a bite of these profitable times when you first start, because by the time you get there, you're overproducing and the prices drop. And now what do? It's a ongoing problem. It's been that way forever. But we can overplant and we can get there. We found ways to produce more almonds per acre, more walnuts per acre, different varieties producing more, self-fertile varieties in almonds, some things you can do on walnuts to make them more fruitful, many, many things. And so what happens is not only are you planting more acreage, that acreage is more productive because of some of the things you've done to get you there than the ones that currently are in the ground. If I'm doing an almond orchard that's slowed way down and it's only producing 12 to 1,500 pounds per acre, I have to get it out of the ground. But I'm going to be replacing, if I go back in with almonds, that's going to be producing 2,500, 2,800 pounds, over 3,000 pounds per acre. And we've got some people that'll push that number in the best conditions up to 4,000 pounds per acre. So you take out one that's full. So you're for every acre you're planting on this side, you're making 3 of that. So if you tear out 80 and you put in 80, so that's going to produce 2.5 to 3 times what you just took out. So you're going to rapidly build up that market. And so where is it? So fortunately for almond growers, the competition is mostly from Australia, a little bit into Europe, but 80% of all the world's market is here. So you have a really good marketing strategy, and you should be able to make it work for you. But what you've got is way more than your country can consume. And a good example of that would be on the walnut side. For years, they had lots and lots planted in China of walnuts. It was a nut that was part of their culture. And as they got bigger and bigger, they were planting more and more acreage. They found some better varieties. They developed some with a breeding program, and now they're actually producing a surplus. Well, now they're a competitor, where years before they were a market to sell some into. Now they're a competitor that they are exporting now. Chile was a person that rivaled us because they grew a lot of the quality that we did, and then now they hit it an off time when we weren't producing. 6 months after we got our crop in, then they come in with one. So all of that has led to worldwide competition. And in that standpoint, our market is way more than the American public and Canada will produce, and Mexico, those Americas there, the North America part, so that we've got to export. Well, now we have freight to ship around the world, which those other markets are somewhat closer, and they've picked their markets over time. So we need to look at, and this is kind of final what I want to when you're looking at what do I plant, don't just look at I like to grow that, it's fun, or I like this because it is a crop that's easy to grow, it produces well, I have enough water to do all these things. Those are all important, but I think more than that is your crop has to develop a demand. And once that demand is there, when you fill it, you will be rewarded, and then know where your competition is. Know what they can do and know what you do better than them, or know what they do better than you so that you can offset that with something that you do. But one of the things is listen to your customer. I know a lot of farmers that just want to be left alone. Just let me farm. But just like we talked about these vegetables, if you're not listening, you're not adapting. They want something different. And I know it's a lot of us that farm are trying to reduce expenses. Well, one of the places you can reduce them if you grow healthy trees, etc., is in your ag chemicals, your sprays that you put on. Healthy trees are able to withstand disease better. They're able to withstand, different pests that attack them at different times. I'm constantly working with the clients that I have left to try to keep them healthier and healthier, and we're finding we're able to do some reduced pesticide use, which, in addition to costing less, it's what the consumer is demanding, whether we like it or not. The consumer is a fickle person because they want perfect fruit, perfect nuts, and they don't want any pesticides on them, which is a lot of what we've used over the past. It gets back into that where we get into historical norms where we've used these pesticides and we don't think we can get by without them, or we've used them so long they don't seem to work as well, so we have new products entering the market. It's what we have to find is a balance between the softest type of pesticides, dealing with those and working on timing, working on all of that. Because if we don't, we're going to find ourselves, if we're not listening to the customer and what the customer wants, then we're going to have to find somebody else that's willing to do that. And there's going to be some fallout from this. It's not a pretty situation in the ag community now. And I'm usually the most positive guy in the room. But it's hard now what we're seeing taking place. And I don't have to tell any grower out there that we have higher fertilizer costs, we have higher fuel prices, we have higher wages and benefits, we have higher water costs, we have higher inputs, equipment costs more, parts cost more. Just go right down the line. There isn't any way you can look into what you're doing and cut costs. And one of the few ways you can is try to produce more pounds per acre, which then cuts your per unit cost. And that can somewhat help you. But it's a tough go, and I feel for all of you. I'm in that bit with you right now, too. I understand how difficult it can be. And if you've got a lower producing orchard that needs to come out, how do I take it out and then have the money to redevelop it at what's been going on for the last 5 or 6 years? So it's just continuing to look outside of the basics. Sometimes we get wound up into just looking at what's in front of us. We need to look, why are we where we're at? That's what you have to ask yourself. What is developing and what else is happening down there? If you're looking at somebody that's doing well now, you better look at that particular commodity before you invest the $10,000 or more per acre to develop that orchard to get it to production. And am I going to realize that back? And how long is it going to take me to realize that amount of investment back before I can actually cash flow again? It's a very difficult situation, and I keep regretting every time somebody asks me what to do, because at this point in time I don't know. But all I can tell you is the top producers, the people that produce the highest level, usually can survive the worst of times, even in high prices. Pay attention to what you're doing, make your nutrients as efficient as possible, and then hopefully we'll be able to find a profitability or a margin down the road that will make us profitable again. Hopefully there was something in there for you today. So until next time, this is Bill Brush. Stay curious.
Thank you for another absolutely fantastic episode of Agriculture in a Nutshell, Bill. I'm sure that everyone very much so enjoyed listening to what you had to say about one of the most important agriculture questions there is. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and always stay curious.